When Monster Hunter was first announced, admittedly, I wasn't excited about it, but this was due to the fact that I have never fully played a Monster Hunter game prior to World. The time I did spend playing previous Monster Hunter games, well, let's just say I thought they were a bit too clunky and very different from other Capcom titles that I was used to playing at the time. That said, when I first got my hands on World, I was absolutely blown away. From the way the environments looked, to how fun it was trying out new weapons, and fighting a great Dragoras for the first time, Monster Hunter had me hooked. So much so that I spent around 300 to 400 hours on the game, which, yes, I know, for all you Monster Hunter veterans out there, those are probably rookie numbers. But for me, it was a lot of time. 1 year later, an expansion of Monster Hunter World was released, called Monster Hunter World Iceborne. And both World and Iceborne ended up becoming some of my favorite video games of all time. Then, just 1 year after Iceborne's release, Nintendo surprised everyone with a trailer for a new Monster Hunter game called Monster Hunter Rise. Initially, I was highly skeptical about the announcement because the new Monster Hunter game was only releasing on the Nintendo Switch console. This made me think that Rise would be taking a huge graphical downgrade compared to Monster Hunter World. That said, as more trailers were releasing for the game, my worry transformed into excitement, and playing the demos just made my excitement grow even more. From new weapon skills to a whole new traversing system, there was no question in my mind that Monster Hunter Rise was going to be special. With that being said, let's talk about the graphics. Monster Hunter Rise runs on Capcom's flagship engine, RE Engine, which is used in basically all of their action-adventure games. The engine itself has proven to make modern-day video games look like real life in most parts. When it comes to a game like Monster Hunter Rise, the RE Engine takes centerfold, and it shows that it can make even low-resolution games look stunning. When you are near an environment where there is a lot of water, the water looks pretty realistic. There are even reflections of the world when you stand on water, which is a nice touch. The characters animate incredibly well, and so do the monsters. The colors look extremely vibrant, and in most cases, the world feels incredible to admire. In terms of performance, the game mostly runs at 30 frames per second. Sometimes there are big dips in frames when a lot is happening on the screen, but for the most part it performs incredibly well for a Switch game. Honestly, it's unbelievable that a game runs so well on a console using older technology. Not to mention that the game is only about 8 gigs. 8 gigs! The loading times are also impressive. When you start up a quest, it takes about less than 20 seconds for the quest to start, which is incredible compared to World's horrendous and horrible loading times. There's also no loading in between sections of the game, which, compared to older Monster Hunter games, that was a commonality up until World, and Rise just continues that amazing loading performance. I personally felt that the devs took what didn't work in previous Monster Hunter games and highly improved them in this one. In terms of gameplay, Rise knocks it out the park. The addition of the wire bug has completely changed the way Monster Hunter plays, but in the best way possible. The wire bug is not only your tool for climbing and evading, but it is also your tool for fighting as well. The wire bug also brings life to weapons that have been part of the series for decades. I love that now I have access to multiple skills too, and each weapon has multiple skills, which adds tons of replay value. I also thought weapons like the lance, the bowguns, and even sword and shield were some of the most boring weapons in Monster Hunter in my opinion. But the addition of new skills makes them fun and interesting, and worth trying out. We also have access to new buddies, Palamutes and Cahoots, being your traditional Palico, Palamute, and Cahoot. During multiplayer quests though, you can only take one, where you cannot take your Palico during a multiplayer quest at all. And your Palico pretty much functions like a healer and pretty much does everything similarly to previous Monster Hunter games. Your Palamute functions like a brawler, meaning it pretty much fights for you, and your Kahoot functions like a scout. In my opinion though, the Palamute's mechanics are what separates them from the other two buddies. Traversing with them makes going around the map feel like an absolute breeze. They're also a great help when fighting monsters. You can also feed and pet your buddies, which is a nice touch. Story-wise, well, it's pretty much a typical Monster Hunter story. You are essentially a hunter who has to save your home from getting destroyed by vicious monsters. I never found myself super invested into the story because I cared so much more about progressing to the next monster and increasing my hunter rank. That said, I do like the addition of the Rampage quest. It's essentially a mode where you have to use cannons and other ballista to protect Kuruma from being ravaged by monsters. I thought it was cool for the most part, and it was even cooler when you had to fight a much stronger monster. Overall, I thought the Rampage quest was a pretty solid experience. So, in conclusion everyone, Monster Hunter Rise blew me away. So much so that I believe it is even better than the previous games. The loading times are incredible, the gameplay gives you so much freedom, and the small touches make you feel like the devs had a fun time making this game. I would highly recommend this game to anyone if you're looking to buy it. That said, what did you think about Monster Hunter Rise? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, and as always, stay motivated, my dudes.